What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here. So, of course, the last review I did was the embarrassing first leg of the Carabao Cup. So now here we are with the slightly less embarrassing second leg, but still not great. Obviously, the scoreline is very flattering, but I mean, even the fans weren't really behind them in the stadium because it was kind of a dull match. I mean, Middlesbrough really gifted us almost every goal, if we're being honest. We did not really do much to get ourselves into the game. Middlesbrough just kept screwing around in the back. So it wasn't a great performance. And then to top it all off, you let them score. And the easiest, I mean, obviously the finish was nice, but still way too easy. I mean, just backing off, and then he finds the far corner. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. I mean, you gave the Middlesbrough fans something to cheer about for the final, 5 minutes of the match. They were already not shutting up throughout the entirety of the match, even though he scored 6, and now you've given them reason to cheer. Just don't give them anything. And that's the thing. We're putting 5 and 6 on them. I'm thinking, keep going. Keep going at them. Keep putting more in. Make sure everybody knows that first leg, that was a fluke. But instead, what you've done is you've shown that if they had maybe a few more of their starters, this game could have been completely different. Because even with a lot of their starters out, they still managed to score on us. In a game where they have nothing to play for at that point. They're not going to score 7 or 5 goals. They're not going to score 5 goals in 10 minutes. And yet you're still too lazy, too unfocused. And the easy goal. And that can't happen. It can happen in a game where you're playing a championship side and you're 6-0 up. It can happen in those games. That's fine. But the problem is it happens in every game. Even when we're playing better teams. When we go and play Villa on the weekend. When we go play Liverpool next midweek. When we play those games, we can't have moments like that. But we do. And that's my frustration with it. People may look at that and say, whatever. Who cares? You know, we're already through, clearly through, 6-0, 6-1 on aggregate, now it's 6-2 on aggregate. Who cares about that late goal? I do. Because it's a symptom of what we've been dealing with all season, and it frustrates me to no end that we let that happen. So, some people may call me a pessimist, whatever. I've been called a lot worse. The fact of the matter is, we have a serious focus issue at this club with a lot of these players. They have too many moments where they completely lose focus, they lose their concentration, and stuff like that goal happens. We can't continue to let that happen throughout the season. So if it's happening in a game where we are clearly in control, we should not be letting them have any joy whatsoever, and we still manage to lose our concentration. Who's to say it's not going to happen against Villa multiple times? And Villa are actually not going to give us as many chances as Middlesbrough did today. We're going to have to probably create most of our chances. And based on what I saw today, I don't see that really happening. Because even a very poor Middlesbrough side, we hardly played through them. It happened a few times throughout the game, but not really as much as it should have been, considering how all over the place they were. I mean, yes, they were all packed in, so it's difficult to play in tight spaces, but they weren't defending with any sort of structure. It was kind of a lot of chasing. So we really should have been creating a ton of chances, and yet still, most of our goals came from their mistakes in the back, them trying to play it out of the back. Great that we put pressure on them. Great that we did that. You know, I'm glad we at least had the foresight to actually make them make mistakes on the ball, but we're not going to be facing teams that are going to be making those mistakes very often. You know, we're going to be facing teams soon that typically play out of the back and do it well. So we can't rely on the other team making mistakes every game. So very flattering result for us, I thought. And, I mean, for Middlesbrough, it's exactly what they deserve based on their performance. But I don't think we really deserved that big of a scoreline based on our overall performance today. But first of all, Pochettino, I mean, his lineup was okay. You know, I like the fact Chilwell comes back in and we move Colwill back into the center because I do think he plays a bit better there. I still don't really think he's our best player at the moment. I think there are better options than him. But I think when he's in the center, he looks a bit better. He looks a little bit more comfortable. So I like that change. Disasi outright, not great, but, you know, I think he's actually less dangerous to us when he's out on the right side instead of in the center defense, because in the center, if he makes a mistake there, it's a lot more harmful. If he makes a mistake out on the right side, at least we have cover in behind him. So it's a defense that I think looks a bit better. Obviously, I think Caicedo and Fernandez are kind of your midfield at the moment until we get somebody better than Caicedo in there. And then the three in behind Broja, I mean, I'm glad he went with Broja at least, because we saw the first leg he didn't do that, and we saw what happened. We saw in the second half what happened when he took Broja out, how little we created at that point. But the one I will say that kind of proved my point as the match went on was Mudryk. I still don't understand why he continues to go to him as a starter. His best games come from off the bench. And, that's... I'm not saying that he cannot be effective from the start, but he has been before. But for the most part, when he's starting a game against a defender that is fit and against a team that is going to sit back against us, he generally doesn't do anything. I would say 95% of the time you start him in a game like this, he's not going to do anything. And sure enough, today he did nothing. So I don't understand that choice. You have Madueke back. Still not the biggest fan of him, but at least he's a bit more dangerous. He can be a bit more effective, even though he'll be a little selfish at times and he'll do some stupid stuff. He has his dangerous moments in most games. Mudryk, in I would say 75% of the games he plays, has no dangerous moments. So I don't understand that choice. If not Madueke even, you've got Chukwuemeka back. He can play out there, and he's generally a good player. He's solid. He's shown a lot before. I know he's coming back from injury still, but I think he's a better option. So that was the only problem I had with the lineup. As far as his subs are concerned, I'm glad he subbed Mudryk at halftime and brought on Madueke. I thought that was a good move, and it did. Even though, obviously, at that point, the game is still comfortable, I think it did help us at least keep Middlesbrough from really pushing out against us, because I think Madueke provided that little bit of an outlet. He's good enough on the ball to keep possession. He's not going to get it stripped off of him like Mudryk was doing. So it was going to prevent Middlesbrough from really having a whole lot of counters on us. So I think that was a good choice. I think the first two subs, I'm not huge on. I mean, Gilchrist coming on I think is fine. It does push Disasi into the center, which... it pushes Disasi in the center and Colwill out left. I think Chilwell coming off is a good decision. I just didn't like the fact that we've now got Disasi and Colwill in the positions I don't want to see him in at the moment. But I'm glad, getting Chilwell some minutes and then getting him off, make sure, he doesn't do anything to risk re-injuring. And also getting Gilchrist some minutes I think is a good thing, because he's showing a bit of quality. He's showing that fight and the desire that I want more of our players to have. So I think that's a good choice. The other one, though, Gallagher on for Broja, not a big fan of. And I know Washington hasn't done too much when he's come on. I know he's not really lighting anything. He's not doing anything fantastic, but he's a striker. And I think, I don't know what it is about Pochettino, but he wants to try, with Jackson not here as your other striker, when we don't have another true first-team striker, our only option is Washington, who's not really first-team. For some reason, he's going to Palmer for his false nine. I don't get that. I really don't understand that. Because first of all, Palmer's best attributes are being a 10. Being in behind the striker, playing those passes from the top of the box, finding the passes in behind the defense, cutting the defense apart with his passes. His attributes do not match a false nine. A false nine typically are hard workers. They're fast. They're energetic. They're running around. Their movement is typically what makes them a good false nine. Palmer's not really much of a mover. He'll drop into the spaces, but it's not like he's flying around. It's not like he's just all around the field and pulling the defenders every which way. He's not that type of player. He's the player, he'll pull out into the space, get on the ball, and make something happen. So I just don't understand why we keep turning to him for a false nine. If you're not going to go with Washington in there at least he's a striker, then go with somebody like Sterling. Sterling's movement typically, he's not always the most mobile. Sometimes he'll be a little lazy and walk around. But when he is moving, he's very quick. He is very good about pulling defenders every which way. I think Madueke would be a decent option in there. Honestly, Mudryk might even be a good option. Because at least at that point, all he's got to do is get in behind the defense. He doesn't have to run at a defender anymore. So I really don't understand that. I don't understand Palmer as a false nine. I don't think it works. Nothing about Palmer screams false nine. Every time he goes up there, first of all, we lose a little bit of creativity in the midfield where he was before, and also you lose him most of the time because he kind of gets marked out of the game now by the defenders. So it's just a very odd decision. And then the final two subs, one was, Chukwuemeka coming on for, who was it? Caicedo, I think? Yeah, Caicedo, because then Gallagher dropped in, and Chukwuemeka kind of became the new number 10. I thought that was fine. I'm glad to see Chukwuemeka getting some minutes, getting him back into the team. And then, what's his name? Castledine came on for Sterling, and he's just, young player. We're well ahead. Get the young man some minutes, see if he's anywhere close to the first team. So I have no problem with that sub either. But overall, I think this, for me, it doesn't necessarily get Poch, I'm going to call him Pep for some reason, doesn't necessarily get him completely out of the hot seat for me. Again, I know he's not in any danger really of losing his job because we've been competitive enough to where I'm sure Bowley is happy enough. Unlike with Potter last season where we were literally just going further and further downhill. Pochettino has at least done enough to make us competitive. We're close enough to Europe. We're in the final of one of the domestic cups. He's doing enough to keep his job for Bowley. For me, though, it's kind of wavering. Whether or not I personally think he's going to be the coach that's going to take us back up to success, it kind of goes back and forth. And I know some of that is the players that he has at his disposal, the amount of injuries. I know not all of it is his fault, but there are some games like the first leg of this competition that I feel like he's not really doing enough to get these guys motivated to go out and work hard. When I see some of these plays, honestly, when I saw the first 10 minutes of this game, I was a little worried because we came out walking on the ball, passing it around our defense, more back passes than there were forward passes. I mean, it was slow. It was deadly slow. And when you're a goal down and you've got a point to prove, that's not what you want to see. But after that first goal went in, after that, that's kind of a bit more what I wanted to see out of this team. Still not great. Again, a lot of it was Middlesbrough making mistakes, but there was a bit more energy. There was a bit more quality than what we've seen recently. So I think overall, it puts Poch back on a little bit of higher ground for me, but just still riding that line. And I think the games against Villa and Liverpool will really show whether or not he's got this figured out or whether this was just a flash in the pan. But on to individuals. Petrovic, didn't have much to do. Made a decent save in the first half when Middlesbrough were coming at us early on and we weren't doing much of anything. Made a decent save because it was kind of difficult coming through bodies. It's one of those, he looks like he's shaping for the far post but then cuts it back to the near post. So I thought he did well to save that one because if that had gone in, I don't know how this game would have turned out. But on the last one, maybe could do a little bit better. It is a good shot, and he did place it well, but it is from pretty far out. I think it was like 22 yards out, maybe. So you would expect your keeper, if he's going to be world class, you would expect your keeper to make those types of saves. So it's kind of one of those. I understand why he didn't save it, but your Allisons, your De Gea's when he was in his prime, your Lloris's, I wouldn't necessarily say Ederson, but sometimes he does. But those are the types of keepers that they'll make those saves. Those are the ones that, that's a great shot, but that is a fantastic save. Those are the types of ones you expect to see from those types of keepers. So for Petrovic, if he wants to make the next step up and be that next step keeper, that's the type of saves he's going to have to make. In defense, I thought Chilwell, probably one of our better players today, and great to see him come back from his injury and really get into it right away. Granted, this is a championship side, so I'm not necessarily saying he's back to the Chilwell we want to see, but it's a good step in the right direction because the past few times he's been injured and come back from injury, he typically starts a little bit slow. He's not quite at it. Today he came out and he was flying. He was really ready for it, so good to see. Silva and Colwill in the middle, I thought both did okay. Silva, you can definitely tell his age is starting to catch up with him, finally, after all these years. But those balls over the top in the second half, that was when he really started to struggle a bit more. And Colwill, while he did okay in the middle, once he moved out to left side, once again, it showed his deficiency, his lack of passing, his inability to get up and down the line with efficiency, and also his inability to track runners from behind. I mean, there's just too much of that from him. So I really think today showed that he's a lot better when he's just in the middle. He doesn't have to worry about being that fullback that gets up and back. And then Disasi on the right side, like I said, I think he's better suited out there. He can get up and down with enough pace. He's got enough pace to do it, and he typically works hard enough to do it. He's a player that I think this season has been one of our few players that works hard but doesn't have the quality that we need. I think most of our players have enough quality, but they just don't work hard enough. Disasi's the opposite. And today showed that. You know, there were several moments where he is just busting it. And against a lower quality side like Middlesbrough, I think he looks a lot more effective. But you put him in a game against a better team, he's not going to be scoring that goal. You know, he's not going to be getting back quick enough to stop some of these counterattacks because better teams are going to have better counterattacks. So it's kind of an up and down game, but I thought overall he looked pretty good today, and I think that goal boosted his energy levels and boosted his confidence a little bit. So maybe we will see a bit better from him in the coming games. Caicedo and Fernandez in the center. Caicedo didn't really do much of anything today. He didn't make any mistakes. He wasn't our worst player, but yeah, I just didn't see much from him. And it's funny because the commentators were talking about how he's supposed to be, like, he won the ball back at one point, and they're like, that's what they brought him in for because that's what he's good at. Like, are we sure that's what he's good at? Because I haven't seen much of that this season. I don't think that's what he's good at. I think he's better at giving the ball away or sitting the bench. I think those are his best qualities this season. But, I mean, today was just, again, it shows he's not a terrible player. He can be effective at times. He's not worth over $100 million. We well overpaid for him because Bully's an idiot. Fernandez, however, he looks a lot more like, not necessarily $100 million, but a good world-class player. There are several moments in this game where you could see he has the touch, he has the know-how, he has the capability. His shots aren't always great. Glad he finished the one that he did. The one, though, that Palmer slipped him through and he hit it first time and it was a little dribbler back to the keeper. He's not great at shooting, but his passes, his ability on the ball, he's very good at keeping possession. I think that's where he shows he's got some worth to him. Again, is it over $100 million? I don't think so. I think maybe closer to about, I would say 70. You know, I think that's a better price tag for him. But still, I think he's a very effective player, and I think he's showing what he's good at. I don't really see him as that box-to-box player that they seem to be wanting him to play as. Because that's the thing. The way they utilize him is he's deeper, and he'll move the ball around, but then he'll get up the field and get up in the attack. And he's typically the one making the runs into the boxes. I would much rather him be the one serving the ball into the box, because I think that's what he's great at. But, you know, for what it is, at least he got himself a goal. Maybe that'll boost his confidence, and maybe he'll start putting in more. But I personally think he should be, you know, our next Fabregas. You know, the guy that's putting the ball in with danger, making defenses have to work because his passes are just cutting them apart. The three in behind, you got Sterling on the right, eventually moved to the left. I thought he was just okay today. You know, he had a couple of assists, did a couple of good things, also did some stupid things that really frustrated me. There was one in particular where we win the ball back, and it's him and I think Broja against two defenders. There was one near him and one in behind Broja. The rest of the defense is all a little further back. Instead of taking it down the line and driving, and maybe the defender fouls him, maybe he gets past him, and now it's a 2v1 with Broja. Instead of doing that, he takes 3 touches, doesn't go anywhere, and now those 4 defenders are all back. And now it's a 6v2. And then he tries to drive down the line and cross it in, and Broja's marked by 3 defenders instead of just 1. Those moments are the moments where I get really frustrated with him because I feel like his decision-making of when he decides to work, when he decides to drive, it's not that great. And there's several moments where you could see the space is there and he should go, and then he doesn't. And he'll take a few touches, and then now that the team is set and their defense is set, then he goes, and then he loses it. Or he puts in a bad cross to nobody because the defense is now reset. We don't have the runs that we just made, and the play is gone. The play is dead. I don't understand why he does that. but it gets really frustrating when it happens on multiple occasions, and it typically does. It doesn't happen every time, and the times that he does make the good decisions, his assist for Disasi I thought was really good. The one, I think it was Fernandez's goal, whenever he did the back heel to Disasi, who played it to Broja, that was a great setup from him. But that doesn't happen all the time. And those moments when it doesn't happen, it can be really frustrating because we see he's capable of doing it. We see on those moments when he does it, hey, you can do it. Why doesn't he do it all the time then, though? Why is it only sometimes he makes a smart play, and then other times he looks like a complete idiot? So Palmer in the middle, I mean, better game from him overall. Still not the same level that he's hit before. You know, I talked about how he looked awful in the first leg, and he did, and some of that was him being played out of position. But I thought today he looked better. 2 solid finishes from him. He's had a few that he's completely missed in a couple of games recently. So I'm glad he's finding his finishing boots again. I honestly just think with him it's going to be he needs time. You know, he needs to grow a little bit. He's still very young. So I think with age will come maturity, will come a bit more consistency from him. Because I think so far we've just seen a lot of highs, but typically at that young age there's a lot of highs and lows. So I think we're starting to see a little bit more of that. We're starting to see his immaturity maybe popping up a bit more in some games. But I thought today was a lot more of the mature performance that we've expected from him, so it's good to see. And then Mudryk on the left side, I mean, by far a worse player. Yanked at halftime, and deservedly so. Didn't give us anything of note in the first half. Worthless performance from him, and hate to say it, but worthless purchase as a player. So many people, I'll see a couple of videos pop up, you know, some of the good stuff he's done semi-recently. Honestly, I haven't seen much from him in the past 4 or 5 games, but a few games before those 4 or 5, he was putting in some goals, getting some important moments, looking dangerous. I haven't seen that from him for a while. And that's the problem with him. He'll go on a run of 2 or 3 games where he looks dangerous, he looks like he's flying, he's confident, maybe he'll get a goal, maybe he'll get an assist. He looks like he's a great player. Nothing. For a long time. And then we'll get those few games again. We can't have that. Especially for a player we bought for that much. And that's the problem with Boli's ideas. And this is why I think it's stupid that they're keeping teams from doing this, because this is a risk. This is a risk that our club apparently was willing to take to bring in a player for this long contract, and he's not panning out. He's not the player we thought he was going to be. He's going to be here for a long time because no club is going to want to pay anywhere what we paid for him. So either we're going to take a loss on him, or he's just going to ride out his contract being a completely mediocre player. And it's stupid. That's why on the one hand, I do think Boli's tactics are kind of smart, they're clever, they're out-of-the-box thinking, but here's where the risk comes in, and here's where Boli's inexperience and his... I don't know if he was the one making these decisions or if the guys he brought in just are stupid and don't know how to rate players correctly, but, I mean, if you're going to make these smart financial business decisions, at least make them on players that are worth it. We've not done that. We've done it on players that most of them are not worth it. Most of them are not worth the price tag, the amount of time that they're going to be here. They're not going to become long-term club players. They're going to have a couple of years where we see that they're not good enough, and then we're going to loan them out for, I guess, until the end of their contract. And Mudryk's definitely going to be the first of those, I think, to go. Broja up top, still not what we expect from him. A little bit better. He's taken baby steps in the right direction, but still not the player that we saw. You know, when he was playing at Southampton on loan, a couple of times we saw him when he was, you know, first starting to show up, a couple of preseason matches. That's not the Broja that I'm seeing now. He's lazy. He's not really tuned into the game. He's walking most of the game. Have a couple of moments where he'll suddenly get that energy and go, but it's not enough. And it's frustrating to see a player of his quality and his physical prowess not really exerting himself like he should on the game. So, granted, some of that is he is being marked out of the game by 2 defenders, and that opens up space for other people. But still, the moments when he has a chance to show up and do something, he hasn't today. So very frustrating for that. Subs that came on, Madueke, like I said, has his moments, looks dangerous, but also can be very frustrating when he's on the ball and trying to do too much or is a little too selfish. It's kind of an up and down with him, but again, it's still better than what I'm seeing from Mudryk, so I'd rather see him right now. Gilchrist, I thought looks, again, very solid. I think he's still got a little bit to learn, still got a little bit of, I guess, growing to do as a player, but I think he's got the energy, he's got the will to fight, he's got that sort of grit that I think some of these players don't have. So if we can develop him a bit more, if we can see him grow a bit more, I think he can be very effective for us as a player. So I'd like to see him continue to be given some chances to grow into this team, even though he is young, even though we do probably have some better options. If those better options aren't going to work hard, James, I think, honestly, Gilchrist could probably give us a little something extra whenever we need that bit of fight and desire that sometimes is lacking from certain players. James! Who's the other one? God, I keep forgetting. All right, Gallagher. Gallagher came on, I thought, at a good time for him because you're playing against a Middlesbrough side who are just looking to pass out from the back. That's Gallagher's bread and butter. He loves it whenever teams want to pass out from the back because he just gets to press them. You know, he gets to press and press and press, and they kept doing it. I don't know why. Honestly, the commentators were shocked, and I can't blame them for being shocked because, yeah, it was stupid. But, yeah, Gallagher comes on. We have nothing. We don't really need to keep possession, so I think whenever that happens, he tends to be a little bit more able to shine because when we have possession, he's not great on the ball, as was shown by the moment when I think Madueke slipped him through, and I mean, you could see the final finishing product is just not there from Gallagher right now, and that was a great moment to see why. Because he's through, he's got the one defender coming from his left, but all he's got to do is just take a touch, set it up. Keeper's still kind of backpedaling, so all he's got to do just put it in. You know, put it in. Either put it on the near side, the keeper's got to try to like turn, or put it over the. Whatever you got to do, just put it in. But his first touch is bad, so now he's got to try to set himself up more. The fullback is now in position to block it, so now he's got to decide: do I try to cut him, or do I try to take it further wide? And then the fullback sliding in, taking the ball off of him. You gotta make better decisions than that. You gotta be more aware. You gotta be more ready to make that quick decision. And unfortunately, Gallagher's just not there yet. So, Chukwuemeka, I mean, little cameo. I'm wanting to see more of him. I think he's provided so much more than Caicedo has, than Madueke has, than Mudryk has in just that little bit of time that we saw him. I mean, he came on, almost instantly won the ball back. That's more than Caicedo did for most of the game. He comes on, he's making dangerous passes. That's more than Mudryk did for most of the game. He's taking players on. That's more than Mudryk did for most of the game. So much that I'm sitting there going, yeah, I want to see more. I want to see him out there. I want to see him playing. I know he's young. I know he's coming back from injury, but I want to see him playing more. Because I think when I watch him play, I think he's got a little bit more to him. I think he can grow a little bit more. I think he can be a little bit more clever on the ball. But once he gets to that point, I think he's going to be a great player. So that's my personal opinion. I'd rather see him out there than some of those guys. Obviously, we might not see much of him because still some of these guys apparently are just so weak that they can't come right back from injury or risk getting re-injured. Or, again, our physio team might just be bad at what they do. Whatever the case, I know it's probably going to be a little while before we see him at full fitness and playing 90 minutes, but I hope it's soon because I really do think he's going to be a very effective player for us because not only does he have a bit of quality to him, he's also got that fire and that energy to keep running at players and keep trying to win the ball back, so it's great to see. And then Castledine, he just came on for a little bit of a cameo. Not bad. For what he is, a young player, 18 years old, first time in the first team, he looked okay. Nothing fantastic, but I don't expect to see much from a young player like that. It was a nice little cameo for him and something hopefully that will give him some confidence to grow a little bit, and we might see him in a couple years, possibly. But with all that being said, though, at least we're through the final. Again, not a perfect game. Have my frustrations with giving up the goal with some of the performance, especially that first 10 minutes of the game. But overall, it's good to be in the final. Now, will it be Liverpool? Will it be Fulham? We'll see tomorrow. If it is Liverpool, this is a good chance to exact some revenge after what happened 2 years ago. But at the very least, it's a step in the right direction after last year when we weren't fighting for anything. Knocked out by Man City in both competitions very early on. We were in Champions League. When were we knocked out? I don't remember now. But, we were knocked out of the Champions League at one point. We weren't fighting for the league hardly at all. We weren't even close to Europe. This is a step in the right direction. Now we're in a final. We are pretty close to Europe. We're still in the FA Cup. We've got stuff to fight for now, and that's a lot more exciting than where we were last season. So, all that's looking good. But with all that being said, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on this game? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future Chelsea reviews, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.